Hi there, tonight we're stepping into the shadowed temples and moonlit battlefields of medieval Japan. Drop your city and time zone below. Now dim your lights, maybe light a candle for that soft golden glow, and let's walk together into a world where women carry death in silk sleeves. You wake up in 1180, your pillow is lacquered wood that's harder than your husband's heart. Your blanket, raw silk that costs more than a peasant's life. And breakfast, it's trying to kill you. The morning mist clings to Mount Fuji like regret, and you're already reaching for your naginata, a curved blade on a 6-foot pole that's sharper than your mother-in-law's tongue. You're not just any woman, you're Onna-Bugeisha, a female samurai. The history books forgot about you, but your enemies won't. Your rice tastes like paper soaked in duty. Each grain reminds you that while other women embroider flowers, you embroider intestines. The irony isn't lost on you. Society expects you to be delicate as a cherry blossom. Yet here you are, trained to slice through armour like it's wet parchment. Listen to the gentle thock of bamboo hitting bamboo in your courtyard training ground. That's not meditation. That's muscle memory. Your father started teaching you the way of the blade when you were 7, because in feudal Japan, even daughters needed to know how to paint walls red when honour demanded it. The morning fog tastes like steel and uncertainty. Your reflection in the polished blade shows a face that's learned to smile, while calculating which vertebrae to sever first. Congratulations, you've just invented the concept of looking féminin while being absolutely lethal. But here's where it gets interesting. You're not an exception. You're part of a sisterhood that historians would later pretend never existed. Women who could gut a horse with surgical precision, then serve tea with the same hands an hour later. Your silk kimono rustles like autumn leaves, or the whispered warnings of dying men. Beneath those flowing sleeves, your muscles coil like steel cables. You've mastered the art of moving like water while striking like lightning. Modern martial artists would call this deceptive mobility. You call it Tuesday. The cherry blossoms outside your window are falling like snow. Each petal that touches the ground reminds you that beauty and death dance together in this world. You understand this better than most. You've choreographed that dance yourself, with a blade that sings lullabies to severed souls. You're adjusting your obi. That's the sash around your waist that looks decorative but actually holds enough concealed weapons to stock a medieval armoury. Your husband thinks it's just fashion. Your husband is an idiot. The morning routine continues. You slide the tanto, your backup dagger, into your sleeve. It's so sharp it could split a whisper, so balanced it feels like an extension of your nervous system. The handle fits your palm like it was carved from your own bones. Spoiler alert, the balance isn't accidental. Your reflection in the bronze mirror shows what society expects. A dutiful wife with downcast eyes and rouge-tinted lips. What it doesn't show is the calluses on your sword hand or the scar above your left eyebrow from when you learned that blocking with your face is suboptimal strategy. The tea ceremony begins. Steam rises from the pot like incense, or the souls of your training partners after particularly intense sparring sessions. Your movements are precise, pour, pause, present. Each gesture is calculated for maximum grace, minimum wasted motion. The same principles apply whether you're serving tea or severing tendons. Listen to the gentle bubble of hot water meeting leaves. That's the sound of patience, something you've learned through countless hours of meditation and an equal number of hours figuring out creative ways to end conflicts permanently. The tea tastes like earth and discipline, with just a hint of the iron that's permanently stained your training weapons. Your mother-in-law watches from the corner, disapproving of everything from your posture to your breathing pattern. She thinks proper women shouldn't have opinions. She's never seen you disarm 3 men while wearing full ceremonial dress. Her loss. The morning light filters through rice paper screens, casting shadows that dance like ghosts of fallen enemies. In this light, your kimono looks innocent, all flowing fabric and delicate patterns. What it conceals is a woman who's memorized 17 different ways to turn household objects into weapons of mass personal destruction. You're thinking about the training session scheduled for noon. Target practice with throwing knives, followed by a naginata forms that would make grown samurai weep with envy. Then perhaps some light meditation on the philosophical implications of ending lives efficiently. The cherry blossom petals drift past your window like pink snow. each one a reminder that beauty contains its own darkness. You understand this concept intimately. You've perfected the art of looking like poetry while being absolutely devastatingly lethal prose. You're walking toward the private training ground behind your family compound. Your wooden gaiter sandals click against stone like a countdown timer. Each step echoes with the weight of secrets that would shatter the delicate illusions of feudal Japanese society. The training ground is hidden behind carefully manicured gardens that look peaceful but serve a darker purpose: sound absorption. The neighbours think you're cultivating lotus flowers. You're actually cultivating the ability to remove souls from bodies with surgical precision. Your instructor awaits, Master Sato, a weathered man whose face looks like leather that's survived multiple sword fights. His eyes hold the kind of knowledge that comes from teaching death as an art form. He nods once. That's his equivalent of a warm hug. The morning air tastes like cherry blossoms and impending violence. You bow, removing your outer kimono to reveal the training clothes beneath, dark fabric that won't show bloodstains, because optimism is for people who don't practice lethal arts professionally. Master Sato hands you a practice naginata. The weight settles in your hands like coming home. The wooden blade has been worn smooth by countless training sessions, polished by sweat and determination and occasionally tears, though you stopped crying about pain sometime around age 12. Listen to the whisper of wood cutting through air. That's not just a sound, that's physics becoming poetry. Your blade moves in arcs that would make geometry teachers weep with joy and enemy soldiers weep with terror. The difference is academic. Your first target is a straw dummy dressed in armour. Its face is painted with the expression of mild concern which is about to become significantly more justified. You approach slowly, like a cat stalking prey, if cats carried 6-foot razor blades and had formal training in anatomical weak points. The strike comes faster than thought. One moment the dummy is intact, contemplating its straw existence. The next moment its head is spinning through the morning air like a grotesque butterfly. Congratulations! You've just demonstrated why the Onna-Bugeisha were feared throughout feudal Japan. Master Sato's expression doesn't change. In his world, decapitating training dummies before breakfast is just Thursday. He gestures toward the next target, a hanging bag filled with rice that approximates human density. Time to practice your interior decorating skills, medieval style. You're facing 3 hanging bags now, each swaying slightly in the morning breeze like condemned prisoners waiting for execution. Which, in a sense, they are. Master Sato's weathered hand points to specific spots on each target. Heart, liver, the gap between ribs where a blade slides in like a key, finding its lock. Your naginata feels alive in your hands. The balance point shifts as you adjust your grip, finding that sweet spot where the weapon becomes an extension of your nervous system. Modern athletes call this flow state. You call it preparing to rearrange someone's internal geography. The first strike splits the air with a sound like silk tearing. The bag explodes in a shower of rice that patters to the ground like rain on a temple roof. Each grain that falls represents a life you could take, a story you could end, a family that would mourn. The weight of this knowledge tastes like copper pennies and responsibility. Listen to Master Sato's breathing, slow, controlled, like meditation made audible. He's watching your footwork, the way you recover from each strike, how quickly you can transition from offensive to defensive stances. In his mind, he's calculating how many real enemies you could handle. His mental math is generally accurate and occasionally terrifying. The second bag meets your blade with a wet thud that sounds disturbingly organic. Rice cascades like blood, white, innocent, but scattered with the same violence. Your technique is flawless. Enter at the optimal angle, twist the blade to maximize internal damage, withdraw before the enemy can respond. It's ballet choreographed by someone with a PhD in anatomy and a minor in ending lives efficiently. Your kimono sleeves flutter like butterfly wings as you move. The contrast is striking, fabric that suggests delicacy, movements that promise devastation. This is the central paradox of the Onna-Bugeisha: appear harmless while being absolutely catastrophically lethal. Master Sato nods once. In his vocabulary of gestures, this is equivalent to a standing ovation. He's seen many students over the decades, but few who can make violence look like art and art look like violence. You've mastered both sides of that equation. The morning sun climbs higher, casting longer shadows across the training ground. Each shadow could hide an enemy. Each patch of light could reveal your position to archers. You're learning to read the battlefield like a poem, one where every stanza could be your last. Your breathing remains steady despite the exertion. This is trained calm, the kind that comes from years of practicing death while maintaining inner peace. Buddhist monks meditate on emptiness. You meditate on the space between heartbeats, where life becomes death becomes art. The third bag falls with mechanical precision. Rice explodes in all directions, creating abstract patterns on the ground that would be beautiful if you didn't know they represented visceral damage. Modern art critics would call this expression through destruction. You call it target practice. You're kneeling in Caesar position now, your naginata resting across your thighs like a sleeping serpent. Master Sato sits across from you, his own blade balanced perfectly in his weathered hands. This is the philosophical portion of your training where murder becomes meditation. The silence between you contains entire conversations. In the space where words should be, understanding flows like water through bamboo. He's teaching you that true mastery isn't about how many enemies you can kill, but about understanding why each death is necessary, purposeful, elegant. Your breathing synchronizes with his. Inhale for 3 counts, hold for 3, exhale for 3. This rhythm becomes the heartbeat of combat, the metronome of mortality. When battle comes, this breath will anchor you while chaos swirls like a tornado made of steel and screaming. The morning air carries the scent of cherry blossoms mixed with the metallic tang of training weapons. This combination has become your favourite poem, beauty and violence blending into something that's uniquely, devastatingly you. Chanel would never understand this fragrance profile. Master Sato speaks without opening his eyes. The blade is not your weapon. You are the blade's guidance system. His voice sounds like gravel mixed with wisdom, a jirdam in silence and violence. These words will echo in your mind during every future battle, a philosophical GPS for navigating the geography of combat. Listen to the sound of your own heartbeat. That steady rhythm is the drum that accompanies the dance of death. Your heart has learned to stay calm while your hands create chaos, to maintain peace while your blade creates pieces. This contradiction is the essence of the Onna-Bugeisha way. You're contemplating the nature of necessity. Every technique you've learned serves a purpose, not just victory, but survival of your family, your honor, your way of life. Violence isn't recreation, it's responsibility with razor-sharp edges and profound consequences. The sun shifts, changing the shadows on the training ground like a sundial, marking the passage of deadly time. Each shadow represents another moment of preparation, another heartbeat closer to the real battles that await beyond these garden walls. Your reflection in the polished blade shows a face that's learned to find tranquility in turbulence. This is the face of someone who can meditate on impermanence while demonstrating it practically on human anatomy. Philosophy and physics working in harmony. Master Sato opens his eyes. They hold the depth of someone who's seen the thin line between life and death and learned to walk it like a tightrope performer. He nods toward your blade. Time for the next lesson. One that will be written in motion rather than meditation. You're standing now, your naginata held in the ready position that Master Sato calls moon-embracing mountain. A poetic name for a stance designed to separate heads from shoulders with maximum efficiency. Your silk kimono whispers against itself as you move, each rustle a promise of violence wrapped in feminine grace. The practice dummy before you has been replaced with a new target, one that's more anatomically correct, complete with joints that bend and break like actual human limbs. Someone spent considerable time making this training aid disturbingly realistic. Their attention to detail is both impressive and mildly concerning. Your first move is a feint, a strike that appears to target the torso, but redirects to the neck at the last possible second. The blade slides through straw and wood with a sound like contentment, if contentment were sharp and severed things cleanly. The dummy's head tumbles to the ground wearing an expression of mild surprise. Listen to the whisper of steel through away. That sound is physics becoming lethal poetry, mathematics expressing itself through mayhem. Your blade moves in equations that solve for enemy defeated, while showing all work in arterial spray patterns. Master Sato circles you like a predator evaluating prey, except you're the predator, and he's just checking your form. His eyes miss nothing: the angle of your wrist, the placement of your feet, the way you breathe through each strike like meditation made violent. His approval comes in the form of silence, which in his vocabulary means, "Excellent work, continue dismembering." The morning light catches your blade at just the right angle, creating a reflection that dances across the garden walls like trapped lightning. This light has witnessed centuries of training sessions, countless students learning to transform human bodies into abstract art installations. The tradition continues through you. Your second target is a hanging chainmail shirt that clanks softly in the breeze. This represents a real challenge. Penetrating armor requires precision, timing, and the kind of force that comes from channeling rage through technique. You approach like a mathematician, solving for maximum penetration with minimal effort. The strike comes from an impossible angle, your blade finding the gap between mail links with surgical precision. Metal rings scatter like deadly confetti, each one representing a moment when armor failed its wearer. Congratulations, you've just demonstrated why even armored enemy demons sleep poorly when Onna-Bugeisha are in the neighborhood. Your kimono remains pristine despite the violence, its silk patterns undisturbed by the chaos you've created. This visual contradiction, elegant fabric, devastating technique, is the signature of your sisterhood. Beauty and brutality dancing together in harmony. Master Sato retrieves the scattered mail rings, his movements economical and purposeful. Each ring will be reforged, the armor rebuilt for tomorrow's training. The cycle of creation and destruction continues, just like life, except with more deliberate dismemberment. You're sitting in the family library now, surrounded by scrolls that contain the official version of history, the one where women serve tea and arrange flowers, while men handle all the interesting dyeing. The irony tastes like ink mixed with institutional sexism, with just a hint of what actually happened versus what they wanted people to remember. Your fingers trace characters on a scroll that mentions the Battle of Owazu, where your predecessor Tomoe Gozen allegedly fought like a demon wearing silk robes. The official account describes her as beautiful and brave, which in medieval Japanese translates roughly to, "We're threatened by competent women, but still want to emphasize their appearance first." The morning light filters through paper screens, illuminating dust motes that dance like the spirits of forgotten female warriors. Each speck represents another Onna-Bugeisha, whose name was deliberately omitted from the official records, whose accomplishments were attributed to male relatives or simply erased entirely. Listen to the whisper of silk against silk as you turn pages. That sound has become the soundtrack of hidden history. Soft, easily overlooked, but persistent enough to survive centuries of deliberate forgetting. Your sisterhoods, legacy lives in the spaces between official words. The scroll describes battle formations and tactical strategies, but never mentions who actually implemented them on the ground level. The women who coordinated supply lines while wielding naginata, who defended castles while their husbands were away politicking, who trained the next generation of warriors while pretending to teach flower arrangement. Your tea grows cold as you read about the Genpei War, where women supposedly stayed home while men handled the dyeing. Except you know better. Your grandmother's grandmother whispered different stories, ones where women stood on castle walls with bows drawn, where they led cavalry charges while their silk banners snapped in the wind like battle hymns. The official historians had a problem. How do you erase half the warrior class without making it obvious? Simple. You redefine what counts as warrior. Fighting becomes defending the home. Leading troops becomes supporting their husbands. Tactical brilliance becomes feminine intuition. The vocabulary of erasure, refined over centuries. Between the lines of approved history, you can read the real story. The gaps where female names should be, the passive voice that obscures who actually wielded the swords, the careful language that suggests women were present but never specifies in what capacity. These omissions are louder than the official proclamations. Your reflection in the black ink shows a face that understands the weight of hidden legacy. You're not just learning to fight, you're learning to exist in a world that would prefer to pretend you don't exist at all. This knowledge tastes like steel wrapped in determination, seasoned with the salt of ancestral tears. The scroll ends with a poem about cherry blossoms falling beautifully. It doesn't mention that some of those petals were stained red with the blood of female warriors who died defending their families, their honour, their right to exist as more than decorative objects in someone else's story. You're meeting with Akemi, your cousin who's been trained in the same deadly arts, but maintains the fiction of being a proper merchant's wife. She pours tea with hands that could strangle silently, smiles with lips that have counted the heartbeats of dying enemies, discusses fabric patterns while mentally calculating blade trajectories. The tea ceremony becomes a coded conversation. Each gesture carries double meaning. The angle of her wrist when pouring indicates how many new students have joined the hidden training circles. The pattern she traces in spilled tea represents locations of weapon caches, the way she sets down her cup signals, which officials are becoming suspicious of unusual female activities. Listen to the subtle sounds beneath your conversation, the gentle scrape of a tanto being sharpened in the adjoining room, the rhythmic thud of someone practicing strikes on concealed training posts, the whispered conversations, where mothers teach daughters which pressure points cause instant unconsciousness versus prolonged agony. Akemi mentions that the silk merchant's daughter has improved her embroidery significantly, which translates to mastered the 17-point blade technique for close-quarters combat. The fabric wholesaler's wife has developed an interest in flower arrangement, meaning successfully infiltrated the local magistrate's compound and mapped all security weaknesses. Your teacup contains more than jasmine leaves. It holds the weight of shared secrets, collective rebellion, the quiet revolution of women who refuse to be decorative. The steam rises like incense for the unnamed sisterhood of steel-wrapped silk, carrying prayers for continued invisibility and devastating effectiveness. The afternoon light reveals the truth your mourning had hidden. You're not alone in this double life. Behind every properly demure wife, every obedient daughter, every woman who bows her head in public, there might be someone who could reduce a grown samurai to component parts in under 30 seconds. Akemi's youngest daughter toddles into the room, already displaying the balance and spatial awareness that suggests future training. She's 3 years old and can already throw wooden blocks with startling accuracy. Her aim improves daily. This is how the sisterhood continues, one seemingly innocent generation teaching the next. The coded conversation continues over sweets that taste like honey mixed with conspiracy. Plans are made for flower viewing parties that are actually tactical planning sessions, embroidery circles that study anatomy and weak points, tea ceremonies where intelligence is shared about potential threats to the community. Your reflection in Akemi's polished bronze mirror shows two faces that have learned to wear masks of feminine compliance while harbouring souls of tempered steel. This is the true face of resistance, hidden in plain sight, disguised as domestic tranquility, sharp as morning frost on the temple stones. The meeting ends with formal bows that contain informal promises to protect each other's secrets, to continue the training, to ensure that the next generation understands both the necessity and the cost of maintaining this dangerous masquerade. You're standing in an abandoned section of the family cemetery, where weathered stones mark graves of ancestors whose true accomplishments died with them. The official inscriptions read "Beloved Wife" and "Devoted Mother," but the hidden symbols carved beneath tell different stories, ones of battles won, enemies defeated, honour preserved through violence expertly applied. The evening mist clings to the headstones like the ghosts of untold histories. Each stone represents another woman whose deeds were deemed too threatening to record, whose legacy was compressed into socially acceptable euphemisms. The weight of these erased lives settles on your shoulders like armour made of responsibility. Your grandmother's grave bears the standard inscription about feminine virtue, but run your fingers along the base, and you'll find the real memorial. Small notches that record the number of assassins she killed defending her family. Scratches that represent successful missions. Worn smooth places where other Onna-Bugeisha came to pay respects to a master of the hidden arts. Listen to the whisper of wind through bamboo, carrying the voices of women who were trained to be silent about their most significant achievements. This sound has become the hymn of the deliberately forgotten, the lullaby of those who saved lives while being credited with saving face. The moon illuminates patches of disturbed earth where caches of weapons lie buried. Insurance policies maintained by generations of women who understood that official protection was often official neglect in disguise. These hidden armories represent the practical side of being erased from history. If they won't acknowledge you exist, they can't prevent you from existing. Your own reflection in a puddle of rainwater shows a face caught between worlds, the one where you're supposed to be decorative and silent, and the one where you're trained to be devastatingly effective and strategically invisible. This tension has shaped your features, giving your smile an edge that cuts deeper than admiration. The cost of erasure isn't just historical, it's personal. Every technique perfected in secret, every victory celebrated only by those who share your shadow existence. Every moment when you must pretend incompetence while being extraordinarily competent. The price is paid in authenticity, collected daily in the currency of performance. Tombstones stretch into the darkness like a library of unspoken truths. Each one holds stories that would reshape understanding of medieval Japan if they were ever acknowledged. Chronicles of female agency that challenge every assumption about historical gender roles. But acknowledgement was never the point, survival was. The cemetery's silence contains multitudes, not emptiness, but the compression of countless voices into a single shared breath. This is the sound of women who chose effectiveness over recognition, impact over credit, legacy over immediate acknowledgement. The choice echoes through generations, including yours. Your tea flask steams in the cold night air, the warmth a small comfort against the chill of contemplating deliberate historical amnesia. The liquid tastes like acceptance mixed with defiance, the flavour profile of those who work within systems while secretly subverting them. You're awakened by the sound of hoofbeats on a distant roads, not the casual clatter of merchants or messengers, but the organised thunder of military formations moving with deadly purpose. The autumn night tastes like smoke and approaching violence, seasoned with the metallic tang of weapons being sharpened by nervous hands. Your husband sleeps beside you, blissfully unaware that his snoring is about to be interrupted by the kind of historical event that makes widows out of wives. The irony isn't lost on you. He's trained for years in sword work, yet you're the one whose pulse remains steady while calculating how many enemies those hoofbeats represent. Listen to the subtle sounds beneath the obvious ones. Dogs barking in distant villages, the whisper of arrows being knocked on bowstrings, the gentle scrape of armour being donned by people who hoped never to wear it again. This is the symphony of preparation, conducted by fear but performed with grim competence. You're already moving, muscle memory overriding conscious thought. The hidden panel in your sleeping chamber slides open silently, revealing your true wardrobe. Not silk kimonos, but the practical clothing of someone who might need to kill efficiently while looking respectable doing it. The fabric feels like coming home to yourself. Your naginata emerges from its concealment behind decorative scrolls, the lacquered wood warm against your palms like greeting an old friend who specialises in solving permanent problems. The blade catches a moonlight and throws it back sharper, angrier, ready to write new stories in the ancient language of steel meeting flesh. The approaching army grows closer. You can smell their horses now, mixed with leather oil, and the particular fierce sweat of men who know they're about to discover whether their training matches their courage. They've chosen the wrong village to test their military theories on. Their educational experience is about to become dramatically practical. Your reflection in the blade shows a face that's transitioned from sleepy wife to tactical calculator in the space of 3 heartbeats. This is the real face of the Onna-Bugeisha, not the daytime mask of domestic compliance, but the night shift version that emerges when compliance becomes suicide. Through rice paper screens, you can see the orange glow on the horizon where other villages are already burning. The attacking force isn't interested in negotiation or surrender. They're here for the kind of conquest that leaves no witnesses to complain about technique. This simplifies your tactical options considerably. Your husband stirs, finally registering the sounds of approaching doom. His first instinct is to reach for his sword. Your first instinct was to calculate optimal defensive positions while factoring in civilian evacuation routes. The difference in reaction time will matter more than he realises. The night air carries new scents now, burning thatch, terrified horses, and beneath it all, the iron promise of blood that's about to be shed by people who are discovering too late that some wives are significantly more dangerous than advertised. You're positioning yourself at the main gate, your naginata held in the stance master Sato called Patient Serpent, appearing relaxed while being coiled for explosive violence. The attacking soldiers approach in formation, their confidence built on the assumption that they're facing typical villagers rather than people who've been trained to solve problems through creative anatomy lessons. The first warrior through the gate learns immediately that his assumptions were optimistically inaccurate. Your blade finds the gap between his helmet and collar with surgical precision, separating head from shoulders in a motion so fluid it looks like dance choreography designed by someone with a medical degree and homicidal tendencies. Listen to the wet sound of steel parting flesh. Not pleasant, but necessary, like surgery performed with prejudice. The soldier's body continues forward for 2 steps before his nervous system receives the memo that his head is no longer participating in the conversation. Physics and biology, working together to demonstrate the consequences of poor tactical planning. Your kimono sleeves flutter like butterfly wings as you transition into the next technique, your blade describing arcs that would be beautiful if they weren't redistributing internal organs according to new and innovative architectural principles. The silk fabric remains pristine. You've learnt to kill efficiently without making a mess of your wardrobe. The second attacker hesitates, his brain struggling to process the disconnect between your feminine appearance and your devastatingly masculine competence with edged weapons. This moment of cognitive dissonance costs him approximately 3 seconds, which proves to be exactly 3 seconds more than he can afford. Your blade enters beneath his raised sword arm, finding the sweet spot where ribs separate to allow optimal access to vital organs. The technique is called unlocking the treasure chest, and the treasure is immediate cessation of hostile activities. His expression shifts from confusion to understanding to the serene blankness of someone who's solved his final puzzle. The remaining soldiers have formed a circle around you, their formation suggesting actual training rather than mere enthusiasm. This makes them more dangerous but also more predictable. Professional soldiers follow patterns, and patterns can be exploited by someone who's studied the weaknesses in traditional tactics. Through the moonlight you can see other figures moving with similar deadly grace. A Kimi defending her family's compound with a naginata that sings lullabies to severed arteries. The silk merchant's daughter demonstrating why her embroidery skills have become locally legendary among people who survive encounters with them. Your breathing remains controlled despite the exertion, each inhalation bringing the scent of night air mixed with the metallic perfume of honest work, honestly done. This is the aroma of necessary violence, seasoned with the satisfaction of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The circle of enemies tightens, their weapons gleaming like a ring of steel. Teeth. But you're not prey caught in a trap, you're the trap disguised as prey, waiting for them to step close enough to discover that some flowers have thorns sharpened to surgical specification. You're moving now in the pattern Master Sato called Tornado Through the Tea Garden. Circular strikes that flow into each other like water, except water doesn't typically separate limbs from torsos with artistic precision. Your naginata becomes a radius of death, describing a circle where standing is hazardous to one's continued existence in current anatomical configuration. The first soldier in the circle discovers that reaching for you is like grasping for lightning, painful, brief, and likely to result in sudden disconnection from the material world. Your blade opens his throat with the delicacy of a calligraphy brush, writing death poems in arterial ink across the night air. Listen to the rhythm of combat, your controlled breathing counterpointed by their increasingly desperate gasps, the whisper of your blade through air harmonizing with the wet percussion of steel finding flesh. This is the music of survival, composed in a minor key with abundant opportunities for solo performances by the recently deceased. Your silk obi unravels as you spin, the sash floating around you like a banner celebrating the intersection of feminine grace and masculine violence. The contrast is striking, delicate fabric dancing around devastating technique, beauty partnered with brutality in a waltz choreographed by necessity. The second attacker lunges with the desperation of someone who's beginning to understand that his military career is about to conclude abruptly. Your response is the technique called closing the book, a horizontal strike that ensures his story ends mid-sentence, without time for a revision or regret. Your kimono patterns seem to shift in the moonlight, cherry blossoms appearing to bloom and fall with each movement. The illusion is appropriate. You're creating your own seasonal cycle, where spring blooms, red and autumn harvest souls instead of rice. The agricultural metaphors are surprisingly apt. 3 soldiers remain, their formation tighter now, weapons held with the grip of men who've realised they're not conquering a village so much as being educated about the practical applications of advanced martial theory. Their teacher is wearing silk and demonstrating lessons with live ammunition. Through the chaos, you glimpse your husband engaging his own set of opponents. His technique is competent but conventional, all textbook strikes and orthodox footwork. Meanwhile, you're writing new chapters in the Manual of Applied Violence, improvising techniques that would make traditionalists weep with either admiration or horror. The night air carries the scent of cherry blossoms mixed with the copper pennies of honest work completed with professional pride. This fragrance has become your signature perfume, beauty and death blended into something uniquely, devastatingly you. The scent memory will linger long after the battle's end. Your reflection in a puddle of gathering moisture shows a face that's found perfect balance between opposing forces, life and death, creation and destruction, the delicate and the devastating. This is the true face of the Onna-Bugeisha, harmony achieved through applied contradictions, peace maintained through strategic violence. You're standing in the courtyard as dawn breaks, surrounded by evidence of the night's educational activities. The morning light reveals the true cost of invasion, not just in enemy casualties, but in the way violence changes those who survive it. Your silk kimono tells the story in bloodstains that no amount of washing will completely erase. The surviving attackers are being questioned by your husband and the village elders, their earlier confidence replaced by the hollow-eyed look of people who've discovered that their military intelligence was catastrophically incomplete. They hadn't planned for encountering women who treat combat like advanced mathematics with lethal solutions. Listen to the gentle sounds of morning, birds returning to sing in trees that witnessed the night's performances, the soft wisp of rice paper screens being repaired, the distant sound of graves being dug for those who chose the wrong village for their final examination in tactical studies. Your naginata rests against the garden wall, its blade cleaned but somehow looking different in daylight. Less like a tool, more like an extension of your soul that's learned new songs during the darkness. The weapon has memories now, experiences that have deepened its purpose beyond simple metal and wood. Akemi approaches, her own weapons concealed once again beneath domestic normalcy. Her smile carries the weight of shared secrets, the satisfaction of duties fulfilled and family protected. You exchange the look of people who've seen each other's true faces and found them acceptable, even admirable. The morning tea tastes different now, not just jasmine and hot water, but the flavour of choices made and consequences accepted. This is the taste of aftermath, seasoned with relief and shadowed by the knowledge that such nights will come again, as certain as seasons changing and enemies underestimating. Your reflection in the teacup shows a face that's crossed a threshold that exists only in one direction. You can never again be the woman who hasn't killed to protect her family, who hasn't felt the weight of others' lives ending beneath her hands, who hasn't discovered that she's capable of beauty and horror in equal measure. The village returns to its morning routines, with practiced resilience, merchants opening stalls, children playing games that now include lessons learned from watching their mothers demonstrate applied lethality. Life continuing because people like you made it possible for life to continue. Through the morning mist, you can see other women returning to their domestic roles, weapons disappearing into hidden compartments, masks of feminine compliance sliding back into place. The double lives resume, the performance of harmlessness continues, the sisterhood dissolves back into ordinary wives and daughters. But something has changed in the quality of the morning light. The village's official history will record that the men repel the attack through superior martial skill and strategic brilliance. The unofficial history lives in the glances exchanged between women who know what really happened when the cherry blossoms turned red. You're watching the village chronicler write his account of the night's events, his brush moving across rice paper with the deliberate care of someone editing reality to match approved narratives. Each character he writes represents another layer of historical amnesia, another generation that will never know the truth about who actually saved their ancestors. The official version is already taking shape. Brave samurai warriors defended their village against bandits through superior training and tactical excellence. The women supported from behind, tending wounds and preparing food for the heroic defenders. The story writes itself according to centuries of established precedent. Your name will not appear in this record, except perhaps as the wife of someone whose sword work was competent but unremarkable. Your 3 confirmed kills will be attributed to male relatives. Your tactical innovations will become their inspired leadership. Your courage will be transformed into their protective instincts. Listen to the gentle scratch of brush on paper, the sound of truth being buried beneath layers of socially acceptable fiction. This is how history gets manufactured, one carefully edited character at a time, until the narrative becomes more important than the facts it claims to preserve. The chronicler pauses, glancing up at you with eyes that held the weight of complicity. He saw what actually happened, witnessed your blade work, noted which bodies fell to feminine hands, observed the real tactical coordination. But his livelihood depends on writing stories that don't threaten established power structures. You're reading over his shoulder, watching your own erasure happen in real time. The sensation is peculiar, like watching yourself fade from existence while remaining fully present, becoming a ghost in your own story while the blood is still drying on your hands. The morning light illuminates the careful lies taking shape on the page. Future historians will read this account and construct theories about medieval Japanese warfare that completely ignore half the participants. Academic careers will be built on assumptions that you know to be fundamentally false. Your tea grows cold as you contemplate the machinery of historical amnesia. This isn't accidental oversight, it's deliberate policy, systematic erasure implemented by people who understand that acknowledging female competence in violence would require restructuring entire social systems built on assumptions of feminine helplessness. The chronicler's brush moves steadily, transforming last night's reality into today's acceptable fiction. Each stroke erases not just your individual contributions, but the entire concept that women might be capable of effective violence in defense of their families and communities. Through the window you can see other women resuming their official roles, serving breakfast to husbands who are being credited with their wives' victories, smiling while their own accomplishments are redistributed to men who slept through the most crucial moments of the battle. You're sitting in your private chamber now, carefully cleaning your naginata with silk cloth that's softer than the lies being written about last night's events. Each pass of the fabric removes physical evidence while leaving emotional memories intact. The weight of necessity, the precision of violence, the satisfaction of protecting what matters most. The weapon gleams in the morning light, looking innocent and decorative when not actively separating souls from bodies. This transformation fascinates you. How quickly instruments of death become household ornaments when context shifts. How easily society overlooks what it chooses not to see. Your hands show no tremor as you work, the steady rhythm of maintenance betraying no hint of the night's activities. This calmness isn't numbness, it's acceptance of the role you've chosen, the price you've agreed to pay for your family's continued existence in anatomically complete condition. Listen to the whisper of silk against steel, a sound that's become the lullaby of your hidden life. This quiet music has accompanied countless morning after cleaning sessions, each one an opportunity to reflect on choices made, lives taken, responsibilities fulfilled through applied lethality. Your reflection in the polished blade shows a face that's learned to carry secrets the way other women carry children, carefully, protectively, with full awareness of the weight involved. These secrets have shaped you, aged you, in ways that aren't visible to casual observers, but run deep as old scars. The chamber door slides open quietly as Akemi enters without announcement. A privilege earned through shared violence and mutual understanding. She carries her own cleaning supplies, the practical tools of women whose hobbies include maintaining weapons that officially don't exist. Together you work in companionable silence, two women performing domestic tasks that happen to involve removing evidence of professional-grade homicide. The irony of using homemaking skills to conceal military activities is not lost on either of you. Domesticity as camouflage, performed with expert precision. Through the rice paper screens, normal village life continues its ancient rhythms. Children laugh in streets their mothers, defended. Merchants hawk wares protected by women who aren't officially permitted to protect anything. Life flows onward because people like you make it possible for life to flow. Your weapon storage reveals itself with the touch of hidden latches, panels sliding away to expose the arsenal that transforms your sleeping chamber into a military supply depot disguised as feminine quarters. The contradiction no longer seems strange, it's simply the architecture of your existence. The morning light reveals the truth that daylight always hides. You are simultaneously everything and nothing, vital and invisible, deadly and dismissed. This paradox has become the foundation of your identity, the contradiction that defines the Onna-Bugeisha way of existing between worlds while fully belonging to neither. You're in your private garden with your young daughter, officially teaching her flower arrangement while actually instructing her in the 17 pressure points that can render an adult unconscious within 3 seconds. The lesson disguised as domestic activity, violence cloaked in femininity, the traditional teaching method of your sisterhood. Her small fingers learn to grip the flower stems the same way they'll someday hold a tanto, finding balance points that will serve her whether she's creating beauty or ending threats. The muscle memory begins early, encoded in innocent activities that build the foundation for future lethality. Listen to her laughter as she practices arranging flowers, each giggle accompanying a movement that's actually a knife hand strike disguised as aesthetic positioning. The sound of childhood innocence layered over combat training creates its own music, sweet and dangerous as cherry blossoms hiding thorns. Your instruction flows in coded language that sounds like domestic advice but carries deadly implications. When arranging chrysanthemums, you tell her softly, always consider the balance point, where beauty meets strength. Your daughter nods seriously, unknowingly learning principles that will serve her, whether she's creating floral displays or calculating optimal striking angles. Listen to the gentle rustle of silk as you demonstrate proper flower placement, each movement actually a combat technique disguised as aesthetic education. The morning air carries the scent of jasmine mixed with the weight of generational responsibility, creating a perfume that smells like love seasoned with necessity. The sun climbs higher, casting shadows that dance like training partners across the garden stones. Each shadow represents another lesson waiting to be taught, another skill that must be passed down through whispered instructions and seemingly innocent games. Your daughter's laughter mingles with the sound of bamboo chimes, creating a symphony that masks the true nature of her education. She's learning to find beauty in precision, grace in deadly movement, art in the application of force. These contradictions will become her strength. Through the garden gate you can see other mothers with their daughters, each one perpetuating the same beautiful deception, ensuring the sisterhood continues through generations who understand that sometimes the most important lessons come disguised as the most ordinary activities. You're watching your daughter practice her calligraphy in the dirt, each stroke actually a sword technique written in earth instead of ink. Her small hand grips the wooden stylus the same way she'll someday hold a blade, learning muscle memory through scholarly pursuits that aren't entirely scholarly. The afternoon brings visitors, other mothers with daughters of similar age, ostensibly gathering for tea and conversation about domestic matters. The real agenda involves evaluating the next generation's readiness for knowledge that history books will never acknowledge existed. Listen to the children's games echoing through the courtyard, innocent sounds that conceal competitive assessments of balance, reaction time, and spatial awareness. What appears to be playful running is actually testing footwork. Their laughter accompanies exercises designed to build the kind of physical intelligence that can save lives. Your daughter excels at ring toss, a game that's teaching her to calculate trajectories while maintaining perfect posture. Each successful throw represents another step toward mastering skills she won't fully understand for years, building foundations for a life she doesn't yet know she'll need to live. The tea ceremony becomes an opportunity for the mothers to exchange coded information about training schedules, weapon maintenance, and which daughters are showing exceptional promise. Every gesture carries meaning beyond its surface appearance. The angle of a teacup, the pattern traced in spilled liquid, the timing of each sip. Through rice paper screens you can see your husband in his study, completely unaware that his peaceful afternoon is surrounded by a carefully orchestrated continuation of traditions he couldn't comprehend. His ignorance is both protection and limitation necessary for everyone's safety. Your daughter approaches with a flower arrangement that demonstrates perfect understanding of balance, tension, and structural integrity. She's unconsciously applied principles of combat engineering to botanical art, creating beauty that contains its own defensive architecture. The other mothers nod approvingly at her work, recognizing excellence that goes beyond mere aesthetic accomplishment. Their daughters cluster around studying the arrangement with the intensity of students analyzing a master's technique. The lesson continues without any of them realizing they're learning. As shadows lengthen, the gathering dissolves back into the fiction of ordinary domestic life. Mothers collect daughters, weapons disappear into hidden compartments, and the afternoon's true purpose fades into the background of routines. Family activities. You're standing alone in the garden now, your daughter safely inside practicing actual calligraphy under her father's proud supervision. The evening air carries the weight of completed responsibilities and future uncertainties, seasoned with the ever-present awareness that your choices echo through generations. The cherry tree that witnessed last night's battle stands unchanged, its blossoms showing no sign of the violence that occurred beneath its branches. This resilience fascinates you, how quickly nature recovers from human chaos, how beauty persists despite the blood that occasionally feeds its roots. Listen to the evening sounds settling over the village, normal life resuming its rhythms, children playing games that don't involve mortal stakes, merchants closing shops that will open tomorrow because people like you made tomorrow possible. The ordinariness feels precious after the night's extraordinary circumstances. Your reflection in a garden pond shows a face that's learned to carry multiple identities simultaneously. Loving mother, dutiful wife, domestic manager, and when necessary, efficient killer. These roles don't conflict. They complement each other in ways that traditional society wouldn't understand. The moon rises, painting everything in silver light that transforms the familiar garden into something mythical. In this light, your daughter's flower arrangements look like battle formations. Your carefully maintained paths resemble tactical approaches. Your peaceful home reveals its hidden martial architecture. Through the window you can see your family beginning their evening routines. Husband reading scrolls, daughter practicing characters, servants preparing for rest. Their peace exists because of choices you made in darkness, violence you applied with surgical precision, responsibilities you shouldered without recognition. The cherry blossoms drift down like snow, each petal carrying to memories of the night when ordinary women proved that extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. The tree remembers even if the history books won't, its roots nourished by the iron-rich soil of necessary violence. Your naginata waits in its hidden compartment, clean and ready for whatever tomorrow might demand. The weapon has become part of your identity, not just a tool, but an extension of your commitment to protecting what matters most, regardless of the cost to your official identity. The night air tastes like jasmine and possibility, carrying the promise that your daughter will inherit both beauty and strength, grace and competence, the ability to create life and, when absolutely necessary, the skills to preserve it through precisely applied force. You're sitting in your private chamber with ink, brush and rice paper, not writing the poetry expected of refined women, but composing letters that will never be delivered. These pages contain the truth about what happened when ordinary wives became extraordinary defenders, accounts that contradict every official record being written about last night's events. Your brush moves across the paper with the same precision you apply to blade work, each character forming words that future generations deserve to read but probably never will. The ink flows like liquid history, carrying stories of female competence that threaten the foundations of societies built on assumptions of feminine helplessness. Listen to the scratch of bristles against fear, the sound of truth being preserved in defiance of official amnesia. Each sentence you write represents another crack in the wall of institutional erasure, another piece of evidence that women have always been more than decorative objects in other people's stories. The first letter addresses your daughter, intended for the day when she's old enough to understand the weight of her inheritance. You're explaining why her flower arrangements must always demonstrate perfect balance, why her calligraphy practice includes movements that look suspiciously like sword techniques, why her mother smiles while harbouring secrets sharp as morning steel. Your second letter chronicles the battle itself, not the sanitised version the chronicler is crafting, but the reality of silk-clad women redistributing enemy anatomy according to tactical necessity. Future historians will puzzle over discrepancies between official accounts and physical evidence. Your letter explains the contradictions they'll never publicly acknowledge. The evening light filters through rice paper screens, illuminating pages that contain more accurate historical documentation than the archives will preserve. This is the real record, written by someone who participated rather than observed, whose hands still carry the memory of impact, whose clothes still hold the scent of honest work honestly done. Between paragraphs you pause to clean your fingernails. a domestic task that has become more complex since they're stained with evidence that contradicts your official role as harmless wife. The irony isn't lost on you. Performing feminine grooming while documenting decidedly unfeminine accomplishments. Your third letter is addressed to the sisterhood, current and future members who will inherit this double life, this beautiful contradiction of appearing helpless while being devastatingly competent. You're documenting techniques, sharing innovations, preserving knowledge that survives only through whispered instruction and hidden practice. The final letter remains unaddressed, meant for whoever eventually discovers this cache of forbidden truth. You're explaining why these records exist, why women chose effectiveness over recognition, why the real story of feudal Japan requires acknowledging participants who were systematically excluded from official narratives. You're sealing the letters in oiled cloth, preparing to hide them in the hollow space behind your mirror, a location that's already crowded with similar documents dating back generations. This family archive represents the real history of women who chose competence over credit, impact over acknowledgement, survival over social approval. The hiding place reveals scrolls written by your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and women whose names you know only through their careful documentation of techniques, battles, and the eternal struggle between effectiveness and invisibility. Each document represents another voice in the chorus of the deliberately silenced. Listen to the whisper of aged paper as you examine previous entries. Accounts of sieges defended by women credited to their husbands, tactical innovations attributed to male commanders who slept through the battles, individual acts of heroism that became collective masculine legend through careful historical editing. Your grandmother's spidery handwriting describes the night she held a mountain pass against raiders, while 9 months pregnant, fighting with contractions timing her strikes, protecting the village that would later celebrate her husband's strategic brilliance. The medical impossibility of her achievement makes it easier to deny, more convenient to reassign. The archive contains technical drawings, blade modifications designed for smaller hands, armour adaptations that accommodate feminine anatomy without sacrificing protection, training regimens that build necessary strength while maintaining the appearance of domestic softness. These innovations exist nowhere in official military manuals. Through the afternoon light, you study maps annotated with tactical notes in feminine handwriting, escape routes planned by women, defensive positions designed by wives, strategic analyses that reveal understanding of warfare that officially doesn't exist among female populations. The geographic intelligence is more accurate than military surveys. Your reflection in the bronze mirror shows a face that's learned to carry institutional secrets like physical weight. The knowledge represented by these hidden documents has shaped your posture, aged your eyes, given your smile an edge that cuts deeper than mere femininity allows. Between the scrolls you discover pressed flowers, cherry blossoms, chrysanthemums, jasmine, each one marking a battle won, a life saved, a moment when ordinary women proved extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary responses. The botanical memoir of the unnamed sisterhood. The archive reveals patterns spanning centuries, women training daughters in deadly arts disguised as domestic skills, wives coordinating defense networks while husbands handled diplomacy, mothers teaching children that survival sometimes requires beautiful violence applied with surgical precision. As you add your own letters to the collection, you're contributing to a library that exists in defiance of official amnesia, preserving truth that threatens entire social systems built on assumptions about feminine, capabilities that these documents prove fundamentally incorrect. You're closing the mirror panel for the final time, sealing away the accumulated truth of generations who chose effectiveness over recognition. The hidden archive will wait in darkness until the next woman in your bloodline discovers that her inheritance includes more than silk kimonos and tea ceremony training. The morning sun streams through rice paper windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like the spirits of women whose accomplishments were compressed into footnotes or erased entirely. Each speck of light represents another story that deserves telling, but probably never will receive official acknowledgement. Listen to the village awakening, merchants opening stalls protected by women they'll never thank, children playing in streets defended by mothers they'll never recognize as warriors. Life continuing because people like you made continuation possible through applied competence that history refuses to document. Your daughter enters the chamber carrying flowers she's arranged according to principles she doesn't know are tactical. her small hands already showing the calluses that will someday grip weapons with deadly efficiency. She represents the future of the sisterhood, beauty armed with knowledge, grace weaponized through necessity. Through the window you can see the chronicler leaving with his completed account, his saddlebags heavy with lies that will become official truth. His version of events will inspire future generations of historians who construct theories about medieval Japanese warfare while ignoring half the actual participants. The irony tastes like morning tea mixed with resignation. You've saved the village, protected your family, demonstrated skills that would revolutionize military thinking, and your reward is complete historical invisibility. The choice between effectiveness and recognition was never really a choice at all. Your naginata rests in its concealed compartment and clean and ready for whatever tomorrow might demand. The weapon has become a symbol of the eternal contradiction, the deadly competence that must remain hidden, the feminine strength that threatens masculine assumptions, the love that expresses itself through strategic violence. The cherry blossoms outside your window continue their ancient cycle, blooming and falling without concern for human recognition. Like you, they perform their function whether witnessed or not, creating beauty that persists regardless of official acknowledgement, maintaining cycles that endure beyond individual memory. Your reflection in the morning light shows a faith that's learned to find satisfaction in anonymous impact, meaning in unrecognized service, identity in the knowledge that some battles are won by people who never receive credit for victory. This acceptance has become your final martial skill. As you prepare for another day of maintaining the beautiful deception, you carry the weight of hidden truth with practiced grace. You are the Onna-Bugeisha, deadly when necessary, invisible by choice, effective beyond recognition. History may erase your name, but your legacy lives in every protected family, every surviving village, every generation that inherits peace purchased with precision violence applied by women who chose effectiveness over acknowledgement. The way forward is the way it has always been, through shadows and silk, through whispered lessons and hidden strength, through the eternal dance of beauty and brutality that defines the sisterhood of steel wrapped in softness. Your story ends in silence, but the tradition continues in every daughter who learns that sometimes the most important battles are fought by people history chooses not to remember. And in that choosing, history reveals more about itself than about the women it erases.